You have been giving away your power your entire life, and most of the time, you didn't even realize it. Every time you reacted to someone who didn't deserve your attention, you handed them control. Every time you explained yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you lowered your position without noticing it. Every time you tried to defend your reputation in front of small minds, you played a game that was already designed for you to lose. This is the silent trap that keeps most people weak. They believe power comes from speaking louder, arguing harder, proving themselves more convincingly. But the truth is far more ruthless than that. Power does not come from reaction. Power comes from restraint, from the ability to look at chaos and refuse to participate in it. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology existed. Watching the political games of Renaissance Italy, he noticed a strange pattern among those who truly controlled power. The strongest men were rarely the loudest. The most dangerous men were rarely the most visible. And the rulers who lasted the longest had mastered a skill most people never even attempt to learn. They knew when to ignore, not out of weakness, not out of fear, but out of strategy. Because when you ignore the right people at the right time, something remarkable happens. The power dynamic shifts. The person who expected your reaction suddenly faces silence. The person who tried to provoke you suddenly questions their position. And the crowd watching begins to wonder what you know that they don't. Silence creates mystery. Mystery creates authority. And authority creates power. This is the ruthless secret Machiavelli understood centuries ago, a principle that still governs human behavior today. In this video, you will learn the art that separates reactive men from powerful ones, the cold, calculated discipline of ignoring people. And once you truly understand this skill, something inside you will change. Because the moment you stop reacting to everything is the moment the world starts reacting to you. There is something most people never realize about attention. It is not harmless, it is not casual, and it is certainly not free. Attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Every moment you spend reacting to someone, arguing with them, explaining yourself to them, or trying to correct their opinion of you, you are making a payment. And the dangerous part is this. Most of the time, the people receiving that payment have done absolutely nothing to deserve it. Human psychology is wired in a very predictable way. From childhood, we learn that attention equals validation. When someone looks at us, responds to us, argues with us, or even criticizes us, our brain interprets it as recognition. It signals that we matter. This is why people provoke reactions. The person who insults you is not always trying to defeat you. Often, they are trying to pull you into their frame. The moment you respond emotionally, you enter their battlefield. Now the interaction revolves around them and the reaction they manage to extract from you. And once that happens, the power dynamic quietly flips. Instead of controlling the situation, you become controlled by it. Your emotions rise. Your focus narrows. Your energy drains. Meanwhile, the person who provoked you watches the effect they created. Machiavelli observed this pattern repeatedly among rulers and political rivals. He noticed that those who reacted to every insult, every rumor, every provocation were slowly weakened by it. Their attention became scattered across endless small conflicts. But the leaders who understood power behaved differently. They were selective with their attention. They knew that reacting to every voice meant elevating every voice. And when everyone has access to your attention, no one truly respects it. Think about it for a moment. When someone powerful ignores criticism, the criticism often dies on its own. But when someone reacts defensively, they give that criticism life. They amplify it. They validate it. This is the hidden cost of attention. Every reaction tells the world what can control you. And the moment people discover what controls you, they discover how to manipulate you. But to truly understand this dynamic, You must first recognize the mistake most people make when they face disrespect, because the weak man's reaction is exactly what traps him in the first place. Now let's look at what usually happens the moment someone feels disrespected. A comment is made, a rumor spreads, someone mocks you, challenges you, or questions your worth, and instantly, something inside you ignites. Your mind races. Your pride feels threatened. Your emotions demand a response. This is the moment most people lose the game, without even realizing they were playing one. The weak man reacts. He argues. He defends himself. He explains his intentions. He tries to correct the other person's perception of him. On the surface, it feels justified. After all, defending yourself seems reasonable. Clearing your name seems honorable. Responding to disrespect seems like strength. But in the arena of power, it produces the opposite effect. Because every explanation reveals something dangerous. It shows that you care deeply about the opinion of the person attacking you. And the moment that becomes visible, the power dynamic quietly changes. Now they know they can reach you. Now they know your emotions are accessible. Now they know they can provoke a reaction whenever they want. To the outside observer, the situation looks very different from how it feels inside your head. While you believe you are defending your dignity, others simply see a man whose emotions can be pulled like strings. This is why provocateurs exist everywhere, in workplaces, social circles, online spaces, even within families. They thrive on reaction. They survive on attention. Their influence grows the more energy people spend fighting them. Machiavelli warned rulers about this centuries ago. A prince who answered every insult, every rumor, every provocation would spend his entire reign fighting distractions instead of building power. And distractions are exactly what many conflicts are designed to be. Not every insult deserves a battle. Not every criticism deserves an explanation. Not every challenge deserves your energy. The weak man reacts because his pride demands it. But the powerful man understands something far more dangerous. Sometimes the most devastating response is no response at all. And this realization leads directly into one of Machiavelli's most overlooked principles of power, the philosophy of silence. To understand the true power of ignoring people, you have to step back nearly 500 years and observe the world through the eyes of Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli lived in a time when power was not hidden behind polite words. It was raw, visible, dangerous. Princes rose to authority and lost their heads just as quickly. Alliances shifted overnight, and reputations could destroy empires. In this brutal political landscape, Machiavelli became a careful observer of human behavior, and he noticed something that most people completely miss. The leaders who survived the longest were rarely the ones who fought every battle placed in front of them. They were the ones who chose their battles with precision. A prince who responded to every insult appeared insecure. A ruler who reacted to every rumor looked unstable. But the leader who remained silent created something far more powerful than retaliation. He created uncertainty. Silence has a strange psychological effect on people. When someone attacks you and receives no reaction, their mind begins searching for meaning. They wonder if their attack failed. They question whether you know something they don't. They replay the moment again and again, trying to interpret your lack of response. In other words, your silence forces them into mental chaos, and chaos weakens people. Machiavelli believed that power often comes from controlling perception rather than controlling events. A man who constantly reacts becomes predictable. A predictable man is easy to manipulate, but a silent man becomes unreadable, and the unreadable man is dangerous. When others cannot predict how you will react, they hesitate. When they hesitate, the balance of power shifts in your favor. This is why many of the most powerful figures in history mastered restraint. They did not waste energy responding to every accusation or insult thrown their way. They understood that attention is limited, and spending it carelessly makes you ordinary. Silence, when used correctly, becomes something else entirely. It becomes strategy. Because ignoring someone does not always mean weakness. Sometimes it means you have recognized something others haven't yet. That the real battle was never about words in the first place. The real battle was psychological. And to see how powerful this psychological shift truly is, you must understand what happens inside the mind of someone who is deliberately ignored. To truly understand the power of ignoring people, you must understand what happens inside the human mind when someone is deliberately denied attention, because the effect is far more intense than most people imagine. Modern neuroscience has revealed something fascinating about social rejection. When a person feels ignored, dismissed, or excluded, the brain activates the same regions associated with physical pain. In other words, the mind interprets social dismissal almost like a wound. This is why being ignored can feel so disturbing. The person who expected your reaction suddenly faces something far more uncomfortable: silence. And silence creates uncertainty. The human mind hates uncertainty. It constantly searches for explanations. When someone insults you and you argue back, the situation feels complete. They know exactly where they stand with you, but when you ignore them, the interaction becomes unfinished. Now their thoughts begin to spiral. Did they go too far? Did their attack fail? Are you planning something? Do you simply not care? Without closure, the mind begins replaying the moment again and again, searching for answers that never arrive. This psychological loop can become surprisingly powerful. The person you ignored might start analyzing every past interaction with you. They may begin crafting imaginary conversations in their head. They might even try harder to provoke you again, hoping to extract the reaction they expected the first time. Because attention, even negative attention, feels better than irrelevance. And this reveals a dark truth about human behavior. Many conflicts are not about winning an argument. They are about gaining recognition. When someone provokes you, they are often seeking validation of their importance. If you respond emotionally, you confirm that importance. You signal that they occupy space in your mind. But when you refuse to acknowledge them, you remove that validation entirely. To the human ego, this is devastating. Machiavelli understood this dynamic long before psychologists studied it. He observed that people crave recognition almost as much as they crave power. When recognition is denied, many become unstable, desperate, or reckless in their attempts to regain it. This is why ignoring someone can be more unsettling than confronting them. Confrontation gives them a role in your story. Indifference erases them from it. And once you understand this psychological mechanism, the act of ignoring people stops being passive behavior. It becomes a calculated strategy. But this strategy only works when it is used with discipline, because ignoring people randomly is not power. True power comes from something far more precise: strategic withdrawal. At this point, it is important to understand something critical. Ignoring people does not mean disappearing. It does not mean avoiding every conflict, and it certainly does not mean becoming passive. That is not power. That is avoidance. True power comes from something much more calculated: strategic withdrawal. Strategic withdrawal means you remain present in the world, but you become extremely selective about where your attention goes. Instead of reacting to every provocation, every opinion, every piece of drama that crosses your path, you decide what deserves access to your mind. And most things do not. Think about how rare powerful people appear to be with their attention. They do not answer every criticism. They do not jump into every argument. They do not chase every opportunity to defend themselves. Their silence is not accidental. It is controlled. Machiavelli often advised rulers to avoid unnecessary confrontations, not because they feared conflict, but because they understood something about perception. A leader who constantly fights small battles begins to look small, but a leader who ignores trivial attacks appears elevated above them. When you respond to everything, you place yourself on the same level as the people provoking you. The argument becomes a contest between equals. Strategic withdrawal breaks that illusion. When someone throws insults while you remain composed, the contrast becomes visible to everyone watching. Their aggression makes them look unstable, while your restraint makes you appear composed and confident. In many situations, this contrast wins the battle before any words are spoken. But there is another element that makes strategic withdrawal even more powerful: scarcity. Human beings instinctively value what is rare. When someone is always available, always responsive, always explaining themselves, their attention becomes ordinary. It loses value. But when your attention becomes selective, something interesting happens. People begin to notice. They become more careful with their words around you. They hesitate before provoking you. They start questioning whether their actions are worth the risk of losing your attention entirely. Your silence becomes a boundary, and boundaries are the foundation of respect. But strategic withdrawal also requires clarity about one important question. Not everyone deserves your silence. Some people are simply noise, and learning to recognize those people is another skill entirely. Because in every environment, social circles, workplaces, and even families, there are certain individuals who feed on attention. And these are exactly the people who must be removed from your focus. Once you understand the power of ignoring people, the next question becomes obvious. Who exactly should you ignore? Because silence is a weapon, and like any weapon, it must be used with precision. If you apply it blindly, it loses its effect. But when you direct it toward the right people, it becomes incredibly powerful. There are 3 types of individuals who almost always deserve your silence. The first are provocateurs. These are the people who thrive on conflict. They challenge, mock, and criticize not because they seek truth, but because they crave reaction. Their influence grows the moment you engage with them. Every argument feeds their presence. Every explanation gives them the recognition they were hoping for. The moment you ignore them, their entire strategy collapses. Without your attention, they have nothing to work with. The second group are chronic critics. You will encounter these individuals in every environment. Colleagues, acquaintances, strangers online, even people within your own social circles. They are quick to point out flaws, quick to judge decisions, and quick to spread doubt. But look closely at their lives. Most critics build very little themselves. They stand on the sidelines of life, commenting on the actions of others, while contributing nothing of substance. Arguing with them does not elevate you. It pulls you down to their level. The third group are attention parasites. These are the people who drain your energy through endless drama, complaints, and emotional turbulence. Every conversation becomes a crisis. Every interaction revolves around their problems, their frustrations, their need for validation. Over time, they slowly absorb your attention and redirect it away from your own growth. The most powerful people in history learned to identify these individuals quickly. Not everyone deserves access to your time. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. And certainly not everyone deserves access to your emotions. Silence, when directed toward the wrong people, protects your focus. But to truly master this skill, you must develop something even more difficult than silence. You must develop indifference. Because ignoring someone outwardly is one thing. Ignoring them internally is where real power begins. Ignoring someone externally is relatively easy. You stay silent. You walk away. You refuse to respond. But internally, the battle is much harder. Because even when you say nothing, your mind often continues reacting. You replay the insult. You imagine what you should have said. You think about proving the other person wrong. This internal reaction is where many people lose control. They appear calm on the surface, but inside they are still fighting the same conflict over and over again. True mastery begins when the reaction disappears completely. This is what philosophers like the Stoics described as emotional sovereignty, the ability to remain undisturbed by the opinions and behavior of others. Machiavelli observed a similar trait among rulers who survived the most ruthless political environments. They were difficult to provoke, not because they lacked emotions, but because they refused to let emotions dictate their decisions. Indifference is often misunderstood. It does not mean becoming cold or heartless. It does not mean you stop caring about everything. In fact, the most disciplined individuals care deeply about certain things: their purpose, their standards, their long-term vision. What they stop caring about is the noise, the opinions of people who do not matter, the insults of people who have no authority over their lives, the judgments of individuals who contribute nothing to their future. When you stop needing approval, something powerful happens. Your behavior becomes stable. Your reactions become predictable in one very important way. You do not react to trivial challenges. This stability creates an unusual presence. People begin to notice that you are difficult to provoke. They test you once, maybe twice, but when the reaction never comes, they slowly adjust their behavior. Because the person who cannot be emotionally manipulated becomes extremely difficult to control. And control is what many social interactions quietly revolve around. The discipline of indifference breaks that cycle. You stop performing for approval. You stop explaining yourself to critics. You stop defending your value to people who have already decided not to see it. Instead, your energy returns to where it belongs, your own growth. And when someone reaches this stage of internal control, something remarkable begins to happen. They start to carry themselves differently. Their presence changes. Their silence becomes heavier because they are no longer reacting to the world. The world begins reacting to them. When you truly master the art of ignoring people, the change is not just behavioral. It becomes psychological. You stop moving through the world like someone who needs approval, explanation, or validation. Instead, you begin operating from a completely different position, one of quiet authority. This transformation is subtle, but people notice it. The man who once reacted to every slight now remains calm. The person who once tried to prove himself now simply moves forward. The individual who once argued with critics now lets his results speak instead. And that shift changes how others perceive you. Human beings constantly measure each other in subtle ways. In conversations, in conflicts, even in moments of silence, people are observing reactions. They are watching who becomes emotional, who becomes defensive, and who remains composed. Composure signals control, and control signals power. When someone tries to provoke you and fails to get a reaction, they begin to reevaluate the situation. Your silence suggests confidence. Your restraint suggests strength. Your lack of emotional response creates a question in their mind. What does this person know that I don't? Over time, this perception builds something extremely valuable: reputation. A reputation for calmness, a reputation for discipline, a reputation for being difficult to manipulate. Once that reputation forms, many conflicts disappear before they even begin. People become more cautious around you. They think more carefully before challenging you. They understand that provoking you will not produce the emotional reaction they expect. In this way, ignoring people does more than protect your peace. It reshapes the social environment around you, because the individual who cannot be easily provoked becomes a stabilizing presence in any room. While others argue, panic, and react emotionally, you remain composed, and composure carries influence. Eventually, you reach a point where your silence speaks louder than most people's words. You no longer need to explain your value. You demonstrate it through restraint, And once that transformation takes place, the final step becomes clear. You stop reacting to the world entirely and begin directing your energy towards something far more important, your own path. At the end of the day, the art of ignoring people is not really about other people at all. It is about control. Control over your attention, control over your emotions, control over the invisible battles that most people fight every single day without realizing it. The truth is simple. The world is full of noise, opinions, criticism, provocations, people demanding explanations you do not owe them. If you react to everything, you will spend your entire life defending yourself against distractions. But the moment you begin choosing where your attention goes, everything changes. You stop being controlled by every voice around you. You stop chasing validation from people who cannot even validate themselves. And slowly, something powerful begins to form inside you. Clarity. You realize that your energy is too valuable to be wasted on every argument, every insult, every small mind trying to pull you into their drama. From this moment forward, move differently, speak less, observe more, and when someone tries to provoke you, remember that silence is often the most ruthless response you can give, because the man who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. If this message resonated with you, write "I am untouchable" in the comments below and make that commitment to yourself. And if you want to continue sharpening your understanding of power, psychology, and strategic thinking, make sure you subscribe to Psycript. Also watch our next video, Why Mysterious People Hold All the Cards, the Psychology of Strategic Ambiguity. It will reveal another powerful principle used by those who move quietly, but influence everything. Until then, remember this: not every voice deserves your response. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is simply to ignore.